Only 470 yards.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of true because it could have been like 570 yards if CJ, on a day in which he broke the rookie record for passing yardage, was a little bit off. Actually, way off in the first half. Just like misfired a few times to Tank Dell.
Yeah.
And then weirdly, when CJ hit Tank Dell on the mark, Tank Dell dropped the ball. It had all the makings in the first half of, oh boy, what a letdown game. Oh man, the Texans just aren't where we thought they were. And I had tweeted about it that, it was actually maybe a positive sign for the future that there were all these opportunities out there and they were just misfiring. I wasn't thinking the immediate future.
Right.
I was resigned to okay, they can build on this next week. And then all of a sudden, CJ fixed it, and out in the second half, it was a completely different story.
It was a completely different story in the second half. And I think, look, they didn't run the football well again. They were not good defensively yesterday. But that said, the headline for this game, Seth, and I heard you say it on KHOU last night, I said it in the postgame show, that we knew that the Texans had a good quarterback in C.J. Stroud. You knew this was the guy for the future. I think what we learned yesterday is you've got that next level of great quarterback, which is you left too much time on the clock guy.
Yeah, he's that guy now.
You left too much time for C.J. Stroud. That's a next strata above just the good quarterbacks.
Well, remember we said it. It was kind of a sign after the Falcons lost that, okay, really, defense, you left too much time on the clock for Desmond Ridder.
Right. But,
Ridder is not that guy. Whereas CJ, he's very definitively that guy now, where he's the guy that you can't leave too much time on the clock. I feel bad for Todd Bowles because I feel like in hindsight, it's obvious they should have let the clock run down. He had 4 downs to get a touchdown to win that game. So I don't feel like that 10 seconds should have been.
You're talking about when he used the timeout instead of the 10-second runoff in the last minute of the game.
Yeah, okay, if he could see into the future and know that he was going to score on the very first pass play, then perhaps he should have let the clock run down. But I think it's just that CJ, there's no accounting for a guy marching down the field in 37 seconds like that.
No. And I thought they managed the clock brilliantly. That is one part of DeMeco Ryans that I've been really encouraged by this season is in my mind, he's very good at the end of halves and the end of games with his timeout usage. They had 2 timeouts left. Their first 2 plays were in the middle of the field to Dalton Schultz, and he didn't try to get fancy and keep a timeout for some reason. If you're in the last minute of a game, to line up and get a play, either to line up and spike it or to line up and get a play run is 15 to 20 seconds. You're burning off half the clock if you do that. You
know what? And especially because that was something that they had to do on the fly. Because the plan there would be for CJ it would be for Dalton Schultz to get out of bounds or CJ not to make the throw. Now, CJ talked about it afterwards and said that they just, the first thing you want to do is just get the ball rolling, just do something positive. So maybe they would have thrown it anyway, even if you knew that the clock might keep rolling. But you're right. They didn't overthink it. Okay, we need the timeout now. Do the timeout here. Yep. I'm glad you brought that up. That's been a feeling that I've had to get accustomed to since the Ravens game, where in the Ravens game they burned timeouts. The Ravens game, it was frustrating.
They burned all 3 in the first half with 8 minutes left in the half.
Yeah. So in the Ravens game, you had that old familiar feeling of looking up at the scoreboard or looking on the screen and saying, oh, they got no timeouts in this situation. It's been nice. Since then, really, you look up and you're like, oh, this is found money. Yeah. I wasn't expecting to have 3 timeouts in my wallet.
This doesn't happen. Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah. It was like finding 100 in your blazer that you haven't worn in a while.
Yes.
I didn't even know they made $100 bills anymore. I haven't seen cash in so long. That's how I feel about these timeouts.
Absolutely. Here was DeMeco Ryans yesterday following the game on C.J. Stroud's. Real quick, the numbers: 30 of 42, 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And we're going to get to the perfection of C.J. Stroud in just a second here. But here was DeMeco Ryans following the game on C.J.'s performance.
It was a gutsy performance from him, right? It wasn't all clean, but he gutted it out. He was tough in the pocket, made some plays, right? Made some big-time throws for us. And the receivers, they were reliable for him. They made those catches. They made tough catches, made big plays for us. So it's all those guys working together. But C.J. was just a very gutsy performance by him.
So the perfection of C.J. Stroud, 158.3 is a perfect passer rating, and that's the max you can get in the NFL. 158.3 is the highest passer rating you can get in the NFL. C.J. Stroud had a 158.3 passer rating in the second half of this game.
Yeah.
He had a 158.3 passer rating on first down passes in this game.
Big. Yeah.
Huge. We'll get to that in a second. He had a 158.3 passer rating on the final drive of the game. Think about that. I mean, think about in the second half of this game when they're down 20-10 early in the third quarter. First down, which was a huge topic this week, of varying some things on first down, and I heard you talk about that on KHOU last night as well. And then the final drive where you have to have it. You literally have to have it. He was perfection. He was 5 of 5, 75 yards, dime in the back of the end zone to Tank Dell, which was preceded by an absolute dime to Tank Dell. Just an inexcusable time if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not only a chunk play, but a chunk play where you let Tank Dell get out of bounds.
Right.
And now the Texans are lining up with 10 seconds left, and they get at least 2 shots at the end zone at that point.
That one, too, that was right in that soft spot in cover 2 where the Tampa should have done a better job of clamping that down, especially knowing who your threat was at that point, except that it was good route running by the underneath guy also, and it was a perfect throw. The safety could have been right on top of it. There were CJ, and again, after really being scattershot for the first 1.5 quarters or so, really scattershot, he ended up being perfect. Dropping some of those passes, there were at least 2 passes that were perfect throws, but the Tampa defensive backs did a good job of pushing out of bounds. In the old days, they would have ruled it,
catch. Yeah,
they would have ruled it a catch for that he would have caught it in bounds.
Nico would have had a touchdown on that one.
They really, he whatever he had to do with his footwork or whatever he had to do to clean up, maybe it was just a matter of, he was like a pitcher. He was like a pitcher who has a really, really rough first inning and then comes back. And in the first inning, you're like, oh, boy, this just isn't his day. I hope he makes it at least 2 innings. And then he comes back and pitches a perfect game the rest of the game.
Yeah,
crazy.
Literally, perfect the rest of the game. First down passing was the big one there of the stats that we just went through. I got this off of your Twitter feed. 16 of 19, 297 yards, 4 touchdowns on first down. So that includes the first half of this game when he was, as you said, a little scattershot.
And I think I got that from John Crumpler, who
Crumpler had
USA
it too.
Today. So, and goes to medical school too. It's lazy. So the thing about the first down is, for one, those 19 pass attempts on first down, that's 5 passes shy of the entire number of passes that he threw last week
against Carolina.
So as we're hoping for them to lean more on the passing game, they did it this week, but especially the Texans were amongst the most frequent runners on first and second down. We talked about that a lot last week, to the point where you're wondering, why are they leaning so much on such an atrocious part of their run game? It's just some adherence to whatever philosophy Bobby Slowick had in his brain. And credit to Bobby Slowick, credit to C.J. Stroud for adjusting that this week and coming out and slinging it on first down.
Yeah.
And doing what you're good at. We'll get into it later in the week. This run game, it's so bad. It's just so bad. I can't not talk about it a little bit. It's so bad, and yet you do have to run a little bit to keep the defense honest. They need to be able to do a little bit better, to the point where, please, somebody other than CJ be your best rusher. Like CJ on oh, wow, look at him on this option. Taking the pitch.
There's no way that was planned, right? That was not a design
play.
Not
as such, at least.
Singletary got stuffed at the line of scrimmage.
And he got stuffed at the line of scrimmage and was ass over elbows as he made
it.
Yeah, it wasn't planned that way. CJ just made it look so smooth.
Yeah.
And then on that, I wish they had shown another replay of that 2-point conversion that CJ ran in, because that was ugly as hell, too.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly the design was. So, that's something we can talk about as the week goes on. You're not allowed to be the worst rushing offense in the league. And they're just, wherever they are in the bottom 3 or whatever, they've got too many talented offensive linemen that are standing around looking confused or just nonchalant about the fact that the guy that they just let run past him is making a tackle.
Yeah.
This is not rocket science when it comes to this. They're trying to make it rocket science, and I think that's what it would be like, dropping me down into a rocket science class. I'd be looking around like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
What?
That's what they look like.
That's what they're doing. Yeah. They're sitting there in a rocket science class.
It's you in a rocket science class.
I'd just like to just hit somebody and push them around a little bit. Like, no. You need a slide rule.
Yeah.
But despite all that, it just highlights how, and Mike Meltzer had pointed this out about some of the discussion up in Chicago right now, the people who would say, well, you know what, the Bears need to do too many other things right now to worry about drafting a quarterback. There's too many deficits. I might have had opinions like that at various times. Now I understand and see, like, oh, okay, no, your chance of getting a guy that can do all of this, despite the running game being so bad, despite sheer incompetence at other spots, like, he just elevates your team that much. Worry about that stuff later.
Absolutely. No, wake up happy today,
and
Texan
hire DeMeco
fans.
Ryans too if you can.
Yeah, if you can do that, hire a really good young head coach. Absolutely. You got your guy. I mean, we've been saying it all year, but yesterday was validation that next strata, he's there.